There we go. Hola, mis amigos y mis amigas. It is another Friday with me, Sarah Hips on Show with Sarah, and it is a solo episode. And I have been jumping around on how I wanted to bring you solo episodes. Um, and the thing that really floated to the top for me this week was realizing that if I am asking guests to come on here and share their origin story with me, and if I do the same really with my clients, the reason I am talking to them, then I have to do the same with you guys. I am very transparent. Some would say overly transparent. And I share like pretty much everything with you guys. And if you have just found me on the podcast or just began following me on Instagram or Facebook or I don't even know where else now, you don't know this yet about me fully. But if you've been following me for a while, then you know I like to be honest and transparent with you guys because I cannot ask you to hear me out or to resonate with me if you don't know anything about me. And as I've said before, and I will say 1,000 times more, vulnerability begets vulnerability. So at worst, you resonate and relate to everything I say, which if that's the case, I'm so sorry. And if at best, you just hear me and see me a little bit better, and hopefully trust me a little bit more, even though you may not know me. And so, yes, today I want to discuss me, which is much to probably everybody's surprise, not my favorite subject. But I just really want to be clear on why I'm so passionate about being an opportunity coach. Why do I even do this? And it truly is because this path that I believe I'm on, um, which I believe God laid in front of me, is 1,000% rooted in where I have been. So where I'm going is very much because of where I came from. So that's why it's important for me to share this with you guys. I have this is probably the 8,000th time I've tried to record this because I hate it so much. Just this one, and usually it doesn't take me this long. However, I don't know the order I want to go in. I don't know how I want to do this. So I apologize in advance if I'm all over the place. I think I have it figured out now. I have been I have so the blanket, I guess I should start here. The blanket thing main parts of my story, which let me preface with I do not believe that I had a bad life. And I also do not think I had it um, way worse than a lot of people. I think that the reason why I don't see my story as special is because I know people who have experienced worse. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We are not supposed to compare our our experiences to someone else's because it technically it um, allows us to invalidate ourselves. And we do not need to do that. We already live in a society that will invalidate us at the drop of a dime, but that's why I struggle with it. And I am a work in progress, always and forever. So the blanket main points of me, of Sarah Hips, when it comes to the things that kind of suck, because there's so much about me that is really, really, really cool. But the things that kind of suck are that, I am a child of divorce. Twice, I have been the receiver of verbal abuse. I'm trying to, goodness, why can't I think of anything now? I did participate in sex work for a few months. I am a recovering sex addict. I tried to self terminate once and came very close to attempting again a few years ago. I've been single with the exception of 5 days. I have been single for coming up on 12 years now, which I know if you are listening to this voice, you are thinking, how can this sexy voice be single for this long? God, literally only God. And yeah, I think that about sums it up. I don't think I have to tell you that I'm Black, but that's a whole thing in of itself as a Black American. So it has just been a thing. I sometimes think about my history, my past as like, it's not everybody may be able to understand this, but have you ever been like on a snowboard or skis or in like a potato sack going down a hill and you just keep falling and you get upright for a second and you're like, and then you start falling again. That is how a lot of my life has felt. And like I said, I have not had a bad life. I have had a life of privilege in the fact that I know both my parents. I have um a large extended family that all care about me. I have a support system. I have friends. I have a good, awesome core group of friends. I'm a woman. I'm a light skinned Black woman, which makes life easier. I don't remember ever wanting for anything when I was younger. And I never, and this is a privilege in and of itself, I will never have to worry about being like homeless because I do have so many people in my corner. And so life was and is not bad. The thing is that when you live with depression, a lot of your memories and a lot of your view, it has like a film put over it. And it's actually scientifically proven that people who live with depression, their memories are more dull than other people. And I don't know all the specifics. I don't know science, barely know math. So I don't know the reasons for it. However, I've experienced that and it's very true. There are also a lot of memories that I just don't have that at the age that they were made, I should have them. They're just not there. So a lot of my life, like before I was 13, when all five of my family was in the house and it was a very fun and loving environment, um, I just don't remember, which seems like a really mean trick that the memories from when my parents were together have been like erased and I only really remember after my dad moved out. And so I have shared, and it's a really sticky subject because my father moving out and the subsequent fallout and all of it involves four other people. So for me to discuss it is is difficult. I have experienced it where I have openly shared my experiences on other podcasts, and I have had to face the consequences, which is okay because at the time it actually spurred conversation that needed to be had. However, I want to be sensitive to the other people involved because it's my family and we all are and have worked really hard to be important and positive people in each other's lives. So for me to share anything past that involves other people is just tough, right? What I can say for myself is that that happened when I was 13. I'm 35 now. I will be 36 shortly. And but by the time that this comes out, I will be 36 in like I think 2 weeks. And I did not realize how much that event would root itself and play such major roles in how I identify the relationships, the romantic relationships that I pursue. I mean, it's it's I am case study number one for myself of how something that you think shouldn't affect you that much because you're not the only one. It can impact every single part of your life for the rest of your life. The thing is, I will know. I know now that how I internalized my dad moving out, how I internalized the 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 reactions and the actions and all of the things after. Um, those were that will always be a part of me, and that's okay now. However, before I was aware of it, and this is why I preach self-awareness so hard, before I was aware of it, I was allowing certain things to steer the men that I was attracting and the men that I was obviously pursuing. And then the way that I would handle them. I became very much of the action of I put my needs second, and I over nurture the other person because I think that's how you're supposed to fix something. I think that's how you're supposed to show up. And you can take that for what it's worth, but that it is 100% the culmination and how my experiences with um, my family moved into my experiences with men. And so, to move past that a little bit, I did begin living with depression at that point when I was 14. It was the first time that I had self-termination thoughts. And when it was kind of brushed away, I just assumed that it's like not that big of a deal. And this is just kind of what life is. And so I spent a number of years, I guess, like we can, high school, little Sarah bouncing through high school, and then Sarah in college and whatnot. And the fact is that I don't know who I would have been if anything had been different. But what I do know is that I have a legacy behind me of not finishing things that I try to show up for and not thinking I am worthy of all the things that other people receive. And, it's crazy because I don't necessarily know or remember all the specific moments where those things were thrusted upon me. But I do know that a really big marker in the sand for me was the fact that when I was a senior in high school, or I just graduated from high school, and then I just got to college and I was raped twice in that span. And I will tell you that, well, I mean, I don't think I have to actually tell you, but being raped twice will jack you up mentally and emotionally. Also, I mean, also, sometimes physically, but mentally and emotionally for sure. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but if you have, And I guess I'm supposed to say like trigger warning, so I apologize. Um, but yeah, like that crap just like it messed me up because I thought that I was this young, naive, gullible Christian girl who wanted to save herself till marriage. And in a span of like a month and a half, I then was raped twice and uh, told that I just didn't understand that that's what I was here for. And I really internalized that. And that I just before said, I don't know how I began to think I was unworthy of anything, but that was pretty much it actually. So we just concluded that. Um, I it was pretty much then where because I had had a taste for sex at that point, um, and I think it's a great thing. I think that my parents are gonna listen to this episode, so I'm not gonna say anything crazy, but, like, sexual intercourse is pretty cool, and so that became a thing for me, obviously, but also I didn't know anybody else who had been assaulted. I mean, at that point in my life, and honestly, I don't think I knew anybody else that had been assaulted all through college, which is impossible because um, so many women experience that, and men experience assault as well. So many people experience assault. And so for me to not know anybody who had experienced assault in college is impossible, but at the same time, it reinforced this idea that while my friends get boyfriends, I am slept with, right? And I didn't have my first boyfriend. My first boyfriend was actually the second person that raped me through high school, or through my freshman year in college, and it became a beautiful romantic love story where he also married someone else while we were dating. So needless to say, we rode off into the sunset. Um, and then I had a second boyfriend, and then I've only had really 3 boyfriends my entire life. And so college was the ultimate of like having boyfriends for me. I really packed it in. 2 boyfriends in 5 years. I was moving. But anyway, and so I only say that because I know that so many other people dated more than I did. But yeah, and so I I definitely and obviously internalized a lot of what had happened to me up until that point, because not only was I taught at a young age, and at the most impressionable time of your life, I think that you not only pursue men who are kind of emotionally distant, but then also put yourself second, and then also you're kind of just here to be used, and that's about it for you. And so I'm kind of someone who, like, if a point is being drilled into your head, then like you need to get the point. And that's how I took it. And so my experience with depression, I couldn't even recognize that I had depression because I was so stuck on how like all this other stuff felt. Now, a person that does not love themselves or doesn't think that they are worth a lot and is living with depression, there are different kinds of depression. Let me start with that. There is seasonal, there is situational, there is chemical, hormonal. Like there are so many. Well, I guess not so many, but there are different types of depression, right? So I don't want to say something and make it sound like I'm saying it is a blanket statement for everything. However, for me, I think that I sometimes wonder if my depression was a little chemical and a little historical. Would I, if none of those things had happened, if my parents were still together, if I had amazing boyfriends, if I was treated really well, if I never had been assaulted, would I still be someone who has a depression diagnosis? Obviously we will never know. Or if those things happened to me and there was nothing chemical wrong, would I still have depression? Obviously, again, I don't know, because no one has like looked at my head to confirm that it's a chemical issue, right? um and so yeah, so I think that even though I had thoughts about self-termination or about how I really was unhappy, I just I did not see it as depression. I just saw it as like a result of, well, like guys just don't like me. Guys don't date me. I'm heartbroken again. I'm alone. I'm struggling financially. This is whatever. Now, the thing that I forget that I don't speak about often are, well, there's 2 things. One, when I was in college, I actually did have an abortion, and I know that that's a very hot topic when I just don't think it should be. While it's for me, I actually think it's really annoying that you have to preface certain things like, I know as a Christian, here's the fact. I was a teenage girl who had no business having a kid. And I also had no business having sex. And I'm 100% aware that the repercussions of of my actions are on me. I also am 100% aware that as a Christian, if you bring that stuff to God, he hears you. I don't believe I'm going to be going to hell because of a decision I made like 20 years ago, because the truth is that there are so many people who are making decisions that are not loved by God. And when we repent, he shows up for us. And I think of God very much in the same way that I think of a father, a parent, like where they just he genuinely wants the best for us, and he loves us. Like he straight up really loves us. Now he's going to let us fall, he's going to let us mess up, he's going to be angry. However, the same things that I would go to my parents about, and the same ways that I would expect my parents to show up for me or love me through something, is my relationship with God. It was not always like that. I always had a relationship with God that felt very shameful. I was convinced that he was probably going to repay the abortion with cancer or whatever, like it, and it breaks my heart that there are so many people out there that have that same relationship with God now, because I just really don't think that that's who it is. Now, Old Testament God, that guy was, I mean, he was a killer. He was crazy. However, he even grew and became a better version of himself. And I don't know if everybody's going to agree with that, but it's what I think. And I think there's evidence of it in the Bible. So I'm okay with it. But yeah, I do not talk often about um, my having an abortion, because I know that it creates more conversation that is unproductive than conversation about seeing human people for where they are at different points in their life, and the decisions that they made that you can't change. I only recently told my family, and it's just because I just didn't think that it was really any of their business. It was a decision, again, that I made that I thought was best for me, and it was very hard. I will be very honest, it was very hard. And anybody who thinks that people just go out looking to have abortion, you're wrong, because that's not the case. Um, it was hard, and I think about it often. And this happened when I was, like 19. And so to to say that when we don't make those types of decisions, they don't stick with us, they do. Will I ever make that decision again? No. However, I am thankful and really thankful to younger Sarah for making the hard decision, because she could have been really indecisive, or she could have been really unhealthy about it. She could have put herself in danger, and she didn't. And I'm here, um, with the opportunity to flourish and grow and be my best self and show up for the world as my best, because of that 19-year-old girl. So I'm never mad at her for the decisions that she's made. And the fact is that when I look at my younger self all through my history, from 13 to 14 to 17 and 18 and 19, and all along the way, every time that something crappy happened to me, at the time, I thought I was failing every single test. And now I look back, and I could not be more proud of the young woman who managed to keep herself alive and get here, because it's like what I said before. It was like I just was constantly just falling, and every time it seemed I was about to get my footing, I head heels over head again, right? And so, this does bring us to after college, where I was stuck with money. I was really ashamed and embarrassed of just like who I was in general. And I was very much of the belief, like very deeply in the belief, that all my worth was my body and as a sexual person. So, the other thing I never really talk about is that I did intersex work for 3 months. Thank goodness only 3 months, but that only should further prove how, when the world puts a label on us and we don't know ourselves enough, or when people keep putting labels on us and we're not strong enough to reject them or take them off, it's only proof how much that just becomes part of your identity. I think that we really often forget that identity is so important, and it is ingrained into us to know, to have an identity. Whether your identity is having a fro, or being Irish, or being a swimmer, or an executive, like we are a world that prioritizes labels and identities. And if we are not careful, people will put labels on us, which happens to a lot of people. Oh, like, you're stupid because you don't understand this. Oh, you are, you know, racist because you voted for this person. Oh, you are, like, we put labels on everything. And it's our way of identifying things. Men put the label on me that I was someone to sleep with. The problem came when I believed them, because I didn't have enough self-esteem or love or confidence, and I didn't have an identity. And when people began to put those labels on me, I made sure that they were on. Not, obviously not not intentionally, but by my actions. Um, because I went and I believed it, and then I reinforced it by acting on those labels. And so, again, there's a lot of shame that took place in all these years, that, I mean, I can't be mad at, because I did things and I was someone that I just don't identify with any longer. And I also just didn't know who I was. So I was really lost. But um, my experience with sexual addiction came when I realized that when I did not want to be seen as a sexual person, or I shouldn't say as a sexual person, when I realized I did not want to just be the person that you hook up with, um, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop myself. And when I say I couldn't stop, I don't mean I was just running around town, just having the intercourse with everybody. That's not what was taking place. It means that when I would be interested in a guy, I couldn't stop myself from removing myself through actions, words, and behaviors. I couldn't stop myself from removing myself from the possibility of being taken seriously. I will say that again. I could not stop myself from removing myself from being a possibility of being taken seriously. I I just wasn't the person that you took seriously. I think a little bit of that also comes from struggling self-esteem from when I was younger, because when I, like, the middle school, high school, all that came from, there weren't many Black people. I did not get asked out. I didn't have a boyfriend in high school. I was always like the buddy. And the thing is that when I entered recovery, I started going to SAA meetings in Virginia when I lived there. The thing that I realized is that I would redirect men to that space because I really didn't want them to get to know me and realize that there was nothing there. And then they would reject me, and that would suck. So I would redirect them so that if they rejected me, they were rejecting the type of relationship that I was offering. They were not rejecting me as a person, because I really wasn't sure that there was anything to me. And also, it just was really, really scary, the idea that someone would get to know me, um, get to know my hopes and my dreams and what, makes Sarah Sarah, and then be like, yeah, that, I don't know, that kind of sucks. Like, so goodbye. So I was afraid of intimacy. That's really what that is. I was afraid of emotional intimacy. And in this time, before I had gone into SAA, I actually did attempt to self terminate, and it was you may remember that I had joked just earlier that I don't know science, and I barely know math. I suck at math, and I am deeply thankful that I do, because if it wasn't for me sucking at math, my attempt would have probably been successful, because I did not calculate the amount of pills I needed to take. So I always laugh about it, and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy for laughing about it. But the fact is, I get to, because I'm still alive. And I think that's the best way to fail at trying to kill yourself. So I'm happy I'm here, and I'm happy I suck at math. And I have not tried to get better at math since, because in this case, it would only do me harm. Okay. So I had seen a therapist after I after that episode, and I did start that was like the start of my self-awareness journey, and try and figure out why I am the way I am. And she is actually the first person that has suggested SAA, and I completely blew her off, because I was a progressive sexual woman. I didn't need none of that, whatever. And then a few years later, I was like, you know what, I actually think you're right, I have a problem and I need to get this taken care of. And that's when I began an SAA. And I started it in Northern Virginia, where I lived, and then in 2015, I moved to Denver. I continued it here, except I was at a co-ed meeting, which is fine and they're great, except I was also there with someone who was super awful. So I ended up relapsing and getting into truly probably the one of the worst um, uh, points of my life, because I was just struggling so much in my addiction, my depression. I was so far away from home. I When I moved here, I didn't know anybody, so I didn't have a support system, and the support system I started to have was still kind of new. It was just such a bad time. But I actually do believe that it was God given. The move here was God given. And I think that I really needed to get out of my comfort zone back in Virginia, because I actually think I did need to relapse. I think I needed to hit rock bottom um, with my addiction and my mental health, um, and my lack of people. Because once I started writing myself, putting myself right side up, I was able to realize the things that I needed to really work on. And I want to take a moment to explain how depression can feel. And so in 2019, I actually ended up going to an in-person clinic for a week, because I was really close to attempting self termination again. And when I was there, they were able to diagnose me with major depressive disorder, mild paranoia, and anxiety. And how I like to describe those things, how they work for me, um, how they work for me, how they work against me, is that when I am, imagine that I'm walking across a frozen lake, and I see something off in the distance and I can't really make it out. And so my paranoia starts to say crazy things to me, just whispers in my ear. It's probably like the Loch Ness monster. It's probably someone trying to kill you. This, that, whatever. All the crazy things. Um, and then my anxiety makes it so I just get paralyzed. I don't know what to do, and I get so overwhelmed. I'm stuck in my head, and I'm going on and on and on about what I should do. And I like to say that my brain is emotional and logical. And usually what happens is that I know that my paranoia, or when I did not know I had paranoia, I knew that whatever I was thinking, it just seemed crazy. But my emotional side would ping pong it over to the logical side, and the logical side didn't know what to do with it and would go back to emotional, and it just kept going like that. And I would just get stuck, and I would get so stuck and hot that I would start burning a hole through that frozen lake, and I would fall into the water, and I couldn't find the hole again. And everything, like the entire world, felt really far away and quiet, and I felt lost and alone and increasingly tired because I'm working to find my way back. And it was like I was looking at the world through an entire sheet of ice. It's like I see it and it's there. I can't get to it, and no one realizes I'm not there. I just can't get there. And it felt like all of the good things taking place in the world were reserved for everybody on the other side of that ice. I'm getting emotional because I'm thinking about it for myself when I would be there, and I felt, when I went into the clinic in 2019, I remember just feeling so tired. um like I was just walking against a current, and all I wanted to do was just stop. And it really sucks when life feels like it's on the other side. Like anytime that I saw people happy, I saw people on the other side of this ice happy, and it felt, on my side of the ice I was alone. And even if someone visited me on my side, they went back to that other side. They got to feel connected, and they got to feel loved, and they got to feel involved, and like their life was progressing and mattered. And I just couldn't get there. And it was really, really frustrating. And like I said, very tiring. And I am thankful that I have experienced all of that, because I know I'm not alone. I always am careful about saying that while I am unique, I'm not an island. And for anybody else that has been there, they are unique, but they are not an island. We are all connected. And sometimes we just don't realize it. And I'm right here. I'm right here. I've been there. I know how these things feel. I know how exhausting it feels to fight that fight, because a lot of people forget that um, depression, especially when it gets really bad into the space where you're not considering even just having thoughts of self-termination. Maybe you will never, ever, ever get to the point where you carry it out, but just having a thought about not wanting to be alive is really, really big, because that is 100% against your the instinct that your brain has to keep you alive at all costs. And so to get to a point where you are considering self-termination or attempting it, um, that means that there is zero self-preservation left, which means that to resist it means that you are fighting against not only every single thing that's saying to stay alive, but you're also fighting against every single thing that is making a better and stronger counterpoint that you should not be alive. And for you to resist and stand in the face of that, if you have ever experienced that, I want to tell you that I am proud of you, because that is a really monumental fight. And it's exhausting, and it's hard, and we never do it 100% alone, but a lot of it feels alone. And if you know someone who has ever dealt with depression or any other type of mental health, diagnosis, I want to tell you to just keep showing up, keep letting them feel connected to you, keep letting them know that they matter to you and the ways that they matter, because the thing that keeps a person here when they are fighting that hard is literally having a lifeline to someone else. If if it wasn't for Joe, my dog, I think that I probably would have attempted at other times. But the thought of leaving her alone devastated me more than how exhausted I was in that day. And then the more people that I let in and let them know about where I was, the more they took things on for me. The more Jen would call and just make sure I'm good. The more that my mom would just check in, the more that my, Marie and Janelle and everybody, like people would just keep being around. Like, please leave me alone so that I can go and be depressed in my hole. And they just didn't. They just kept being around. And so it's good. It's good. And if you are there, I always tell people, people who ask me, when you have been at your worst with your mental health, what do you do? And it's one step at a time. If you absolutely have to go to work, you absolutely have to leave the house, great. That's good. Good. Just make sure that today you brush your teeth, if nothing else. And then tomorrow, brush your teeth and comb your hair, if nothing else. And then the next day after that, brush your teeth, comb your hair, take a shower, if nothing else. You will get into a routine that you build on. And then one day, you will find that you're going to the happy hour after work, even if you don't want to, but you're going to, because if nothing else. And you're going to go on a date, even if you don't want to, but you have to because of nothing else. And one day you're just going to find yourself laughing, and you're not going to know when it happened. And it's going to be really good. And I just want you to focus on that day, because I thought my depression felt like it was forever. And I don't know if I will have to take meds forever. But what I do know is that I thought I was going to die because of my depression. I thought I was going to either die early because of it, or I was going to live with it until my last day, long, long time from now. And I am happy, and it is not a long, long time from now. I am 35. And the fact that I have not had a suicidal thought in months, maybe more, maybe a whole year. Goodness, I don't know. I did not foresee this day. And so when we're in it, it feels like forever. And it, because we're so tired and we're isolated, even if we're not, we're isolated. And I want you to know, if you are in that space, it will feel like forever, but it will also it will also go fast. And if you are a loved one of someone who is in that space, it takes so much patience and endurance for you that you should not always give. But one day they hopefully won't be there. I created a quote a few years back, because when I really started talking about my mental health and my experiences, I I know that I lost friends because I was just in such a dark place that even when they tried to reach out, I couldn't show up. I would complain nonstop. I was annoying. I mean, if I'm honest, I was annoying. And if and I know that there are people I lost. And I also know that that now when I talk to people who are dealing with those things, sometimes I'm like, come on, dude, come on. Like, you're being so dramatic. Which you would think that I would be better at, but I'm not always. And so the quote I said is, you have all the time in the world in no time at all. And all that means is that that technically on average we live for a while. You have time to meet yourself and become self-aware and work on yourself and figure things out and have a whole year where you don't date and have 2 years where you travel, and you have time. But it will pass quickly and it will feel like it's been no time at all. And I usually couple that with, I just hope it doesn't take the rest of your life. Because when I deal with my clients, or when I deal with people who are first becoming aware that they are not aware, they want to resist, and they sometimes aren't ready to take the step. And I tell them, I go, you have all the time in the world, no time at all. My hope for you is it just doesn't take the rest of your life. I hope that if you are listening to this podcast, any episodes, reading any of my work, if you get my book when it comes out, I hope that if you are not quite ready to recognize some things within yourself, or to hear me or other people, my only hope for you is that you don't resist becoming aware of yourself out of fear for so long that you miss it, that you miss this. Because this is like life is happening right now. And there are good men that I missed out on. There are friends that I lost. There are opportunities that went away. There's money lost. There is a chunk of my life that I just can't really remember due to depression. And it makes me sad that I have been alive for 35 years, and 20 years of that was spent being depressed and used and manipulated and put down and disrespected and treating myself like I was not worthy and demeaning everything that God put me on this earth for. 20 years of 35. The good news is that I fixed it and am still always fixing it at 35. Um so yeah, if I if I can do it, so can you. That's the point, right? And again, if you listen to this and you resonated or related with any or all, I'm sorry, because that sucks. But I also want you to know that, again, you are not an island. You are connected and you're not alone. And there are monumentally more people out there, exponentially more people out there that can relate, that probably can versus cannot. Um, Again, my main goal with this was just to share so that you guys know who I am and why I'm passionate about you becoming more self aware and you taking the opportunity to get to know who you are and seeking opportunities for growth in your life, because I know what it feels like to think that it's not worth being here, or to think that you're not worth more. Even if you have that voice inside that says that you were born at this time to have an impact in some way. I don't know what it is. Um, and it may be felt while you're here, it may not. Maybe you felt 50 years after you leave. But you are here and you are worthy, and you deserve all the opportunity to find who you are and your purpose and all of the joy and fulfillment that this life has for you, because I know that it has a lot. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And thank you for listening to my story and allowing me the opportunity to share it with you. And if you resonate, relate, anything like that, and you have questions or you just want to share, please feel free, reach out. If you want to work with me, if you heard something here that makes you think, wow, okay, you know what, I'm ready to start that process, reach out to me. And if you or just someone who wants to show up better for other people, hopefully my podcast will help you do that. Thank you so much again. You are loved and you are amazing. Have a good one.